Most people think they know why people over 25 start staying at home more. They assume it's boredom, laziness, or that something quietly went wrong. But what if that assumption is doing real damage? What if this shift is actually a sign of psychological maturity, and misunderstanding it is why so many adults slowly drift apart from friends, partners, and even themselves without knowing why? Here's what almost no one realizes in time. Somewhere after your mid-20s, socializing stops being free. Even good plans come with a cost. Loud spaces, forced energy, last-minute commitments, they don't just take time, they take recovery. And when people don't recognize this shift, they keep pushing themselves the same way they did at 21. Then quietly wonder why everything feels heavier, shorter-tempered, and harder to sustain. Psychologists explain this through stimulation thresholds. Younger nervous systems need intensity to feel alive. More mature ones don't. After years of constant input, the brain becomes selective. Calm starts to feel better than chaos. Silence starts to restore instead of bore. This isn't withdrawal, it's regulation. But when this change is ignored, people don't become stronger. They become chronically drained while blaming themselves for it. And this is where real problems begin, because exhaustion doesn't just disappear, it leaks into patience, into motivation, into relationships. You cancel plans not because you don't care, but because you don't have anything left to give. And when no one understands what's happening, you start mislabeling yourself as distant, boring, or difficult instead of tired. This is why home suddenly matters so much. Outside, everything requires performance, attention, reaction, emotional labor. At home, nothing is demanded. You control the pace, the noise, the stimulation. For adults carrying responsibility and pressure, that control isn't indulgence, it's recovery. Without it, even small social moments stop feeling connecting and start feeling overwhelming. Here's the part most people miss entirely. Adults who enjoy staying home aren't disengaging from life, they're processing it. Their minds don't go quiet when the room does. That's why clarity shows up alone. That's why direction forms in stillness. Crowded spaces create memories, but quiet spaces shape decisions that change lives. Culture pushes against this hard. It rewards visibility, busyness, and constant availability. It quietly teaches that if your life isn't loud, it must be lacking. So when someone over 25 chooses a quiet night over another obligation, they're treated like they're shrinking. In reality, they're filtering. They're removing what drains them and keeping what actually sustains them, even if it looks unimpressive from the outside. But this is where things get uncomfortable. Not all staying home is healthy. For some people, it's peace. For others, it's protection. There's a critical difference between choosing solitude because it restores you and avoiding the world because it feels too heavy. One builds stability, the other slowly narrows your life. And the danger is that from the outside, they can look exactly the same. So be honest with yourself for a moment. When you stay home, do you feel clearer afterward or more stuck, more grounded or more numb? That answer matters far more than how often you go out, because one path deepens your life quietly and the other makes it smaller without you noticing. For those who truly thrive at home, joy comes from small rituals, familiar routines, predictable comfort, moments where nothing needs to be proven. This isn't giving up, it's presence. And psychology shows something most people never connect. Low stimulation preference is linked to emotional regulation, long-term satisfaction, and better decision-making over time. Not louder lives, better ones. So if you're over 25 and you turn down plans without guilt, if quiet restores you more than noise ever did, if staying home feels like alignment instead of missing out, you're not broken, you're not boring, you're not behind. You've simply reached the stage where peace matters more than performance and depth matters more than approval. But here's the part most people realize too late. If you misunderstand this shift, you'll either keep fighting yourself or build a life that looks successful on the outside and feels wrong on the inside. The next video explains how this misunderstanding quietly shapes careers, relationships, and burnout in ways people don't recognize until years have already passed. Watch that next, because once you see where this leads, you'll understand parts of your life you can't afford to ignore anymore.